In this video, I spent 5 days hiking more than 90 kilometers through the Swiss Alps. It became the hardest and most beautiful hiking project I've done so far. The weather didn't always cooperate, but no storm lasts forever. And somehow, this route still feels like a hidden gem nobody knows. Good morning. I'm here in the beautiful canton of Graubünden and I will hike the Vals trail. My plan is to do at least 6 days of hiking, so I would say let's get started. The Vals trail is 320 kilometers long with a total of 19 stages. When looking at the map, it starts on the St. Bernardino Pass in Switzerland and winds its way through the canton of Graubünden. On the very last stage, the trail even crosses the border into Austria. On the mobile app Schweizmobil, you can search for Graubünden's regional route 35 if you want to see all the stages. I actually skipped the first stage as it's near a road and started in Nufenen instead. At the beginning of my journey, I wanted to follow the Vals trail for 6 days. However, at some point I changed my plan, so make sure to keep watching if you want to find out why.
Call me home as the ocean throws the water to the shoreline, the blanket on the coast from the stories old, let the truth be told.
I started down there in the valley and took me 1 hour to get up here. It's so exhausting. As you can see, my t-shirt is already fully wet and I think the backpack is around 14 kilogram or so. It's just incredible. Putting on the backpack after a break is always the worst feeling. The beginning could hardly have been any steeper. After just 1 hour, I was already completely exhausted, my t-shirt soaked with sweat and the backpack feeling heavier with every step. Carrying around 14 kilos uphill right from the start really makes you work for every meter of elevation. And somehow, putting the backpack back on after a short break always feels like the hardest moment of all. For a few minutes it feels amazing to have no weight on your shoulders, but only seconds after you start walking again, the strain slowly creeps back in.
Something tells me I won't be coming home. Maybe I might be better off alone. Think I'm gonna stay sheltered from the rain in Barcelona.
Yes, I finally made it to the top. It was so exhausting to get up here. I'm really glad that there's no more uphill for today. I'm really hungry now, but first I will fly with the drone. Enjoy! For lunch I ate some nuts, some thyme and salta vida, some tasty bread with ham, and last but not least some chocolate for dessert. There's still about 3 hours left, but now I have a lot of new energy and also the backpack is a bit lighter. That's really amazing. The landscape around me looked absolutely breathtaking. The stage from Nufenen to Vals crosses a striking transition between high alpine terrain and the quiet valleys of Graubünden. Above the tree line, the route feels wild and exposed, with wide views over mountain landscapes shaped by vanished glaciers. As you descend, the scenery slowly softens into green pastures. Historically, these paths were important connections between valleys long before modern roads existed. It's a stage where you really feel the scale of the mountains and the remoteness of the region. I finally found a well to refill my bottle. So far, walking downhill is much easier, and now there's about 1.5 hours left. I sweated so much that I didn't need to pee for hours. That was a sign that I should definitely drink more from now on. At that point, I had already completed most of the descent, and my knees were looking forward to flatter terrain again. After not seeing anyone for around 4 hours, I was approaching civilization again.
I've heard the songs of summer singing, like a humming in the June. There's always something around the corner, something more to be found. I'm sure the coast of California are beautiful right now. And New York sky shines so bright.
When I was walking down the street, an elderly couple gave me a ride in their car. It was really kind and saved me a lot of time. They dropped me off in Vals, which was meant to be the destination for the day. As you can see, it's a really beautiful village with an old church and historical wooden houses. I went to the grocery store to buy some food. I actually had to buy a lot since all the shops were closed the next day. Then I continued hiking. I was searching a spot to wild camp and was hoping to find a good location soon. It took way longer than I had expected. After another hour of hiking, I finally found a good spot. Like always, the first thing I did was to set up my tent. Afterwards, it was time for dinner. I cooked some polenta on my gas stove. As you can see, I was really happy to eat a warm meal after a very exhausting day of hiking. After dinner, I enjoyed the sunset. It was really peaceful and I went to bed early. Good morning. I slept quite well this night, as I'm already used to sleeping in the tent. At some point it rained a bit, but that didn't bother me that much. As you can see, the weather is just absolutely amazing today, so I would say let's get started. The second day from Vals to Safien began in some of the most beautiful nature I have ever seen. Right above Vals, the landscape opens into wide alpine meadows, crystal clear streams, and quiet pastures surrounded by high peaks. The climb toward the pass feels peaceful rather than harsh, with constantly changing views the higher you go. It's a stage that perfectly combines gentle beauty and true alpine wilderness. Compared to the first day, I noticed that the backpack didn't bother me that much anymore. I had already gotten used to it and could enjoy the nature even more. Wow, this first section is just incredibly beautiful, and since I did another 700 meters of elevation yesterday, there's only 1 hour left to the top now. The day before, I was not amused that it took so long to find a spot for wild camping. However, as the stage of the second day was going to be quite long, I was glad about the 700 meters of elevation I had covered. As if it wasn't hard enough already, I was carrying a lot of food. It was Friday, but since it was a holiday, all the shops were closed. The backpack felt heavier than ever, but at least I didn't have to worry about running out of supplies up in the mountains.
On and on, and on and on.
Yes, I made it to the highest point for today. So far the Valso trail is really fun. Now I have to put on sunscreen and then I can continue. Always very important, as there are no trees you can get burned pretty easily. The first half of the summer was not so good. It's so nice that the weather is finally better. When the sun is shining, hiking is just so much fun. I just crossed the Tomil Pass. It links the valleys of Vals and Safien at 2,400 meters above sea level. Up here, the landscape feels open and almost untouched, with wide views stretching far into the surrounding mountains. Reaching the top after the steady climb brings a real sense of accomplishment and relief. On one side lies the gentle alpine scenery above Vals, while on the other the remote Safien valley suddenly opens below. From here on, it's time to leave the heights behind and begin the long descent.
At night you beckon
For lunch I ate some Ticino bread with smoked ham, again some Davida, and for dessert some cookies with chocolate pieces. I even had a tasty iced tea that I had carried all the way there. As you can see, I was really enjoying the lunch break. Now I'm energized again, around 12 kilometers to go. Luckily my feet are still doing great. The canton of Graubünden is quite popular in Switzerland. Both in summer and winter many people come here for a vacation. What I really like about this part of the canton is that it's very quiet. There are other areas that are much more crowded, but here it's pretty much the opposite. It shows that you don't need to visit the touristy locations, also the places where there are little people can be very beautiful.
I'm coming alive like a wildflower. Summer sunsets, canyon clouds, feels like time is slowing down. Don't wake me now, while the world is chasing dreams. You and I got all we need. It's here and now.
Finally, I'm not on the road anymore, and up here I have an amazing view. The Vals Trail follows the historic migration routes of the Vals people. They settled high alpine valleys across what is now Graubünden, Austria, and northern Italy, bringing with them their own dialect, architecture, and farming traditions. Because they were skilled at living in harsh mountain environments, many remote settlements only existed thanks to them. Even today, the wooden houses and scattered hamlets along the route reflect this heritage. Walking this trail feels less like a normal hike and more like tracing the footsteps of a culture that shaped these mountains. Once again, I had a beautiful spot for the night. I saw the owner of the property and he allowed me to stay there. I dried my tent as it was still a bit wet from the previous night. Once again, I cooked polenta for dinner. A 500-gram pack is usually enough for 3 meals. Just like the evening before, the sky was very beautiful when the sun was setting. Good morning. It wasn't the best night so far, as it's not entirely flat on this field, but I still slept okay. And every day I put on the clothes, they are still a bit wet from the day before. That's also not the best feeling, but at least the weather is amazing today. It could rain, but I really hope that it stays dry. From Safien, I decided not to continue along the Vals Trail, but instead head toward Vella. The weather forecast wasn't looking promising on the original route, and this alternative had a much better chance of clear skies. In the mountains, you quickly learn that plans are only a rough guideline that are not final. Staying flexible often matters more than sticking stubbornly to an idea. So this change of direction became part of the adventure rather than a problem. By the way, if you want to see the exact route of this hike, make sure to check out the Komoot link in the description.
Home is where I'm with you. The trails I've run, the infinite webs I've spun, the greats of the things I've done.
As you can see, I did quite some height already. My t-shirt is already fully wet and I have 2 small blisters from yesterday, but I put plasters on them and so far it works well, luckily. But unfortunately there are some dark clouds around. Hopefully it will not start to rain. I think I got some really nice footage with the drone. The first half of the uphill took me an hour. Hopefully I will be at the top before 12 o'clock. The clouds made the air noticeably colder, but the steady climb actually felt more comfortable without the strong sun. Despite it being a Saturday, I hadn't seen a single person, probably because the forecast had kept most people at home. The mountains felt unusually quiet, almost as if I had the entire landscape to myself. I was relieved that I was still dry. Moments like this make you appreciate good timing in the mountains.
You are my dream, come alive, my everything, my like no other. Yeah, I could stay here with you for forever.
Just as I reached the top, it started to rain, which wasn't so nice. However, I knew that it wouldn't be a problem as long as it was just rain. Thunderstorms are a different story entirely, especially up here on a mountain pass. Lightning can be extremely dangerous when you're standing on the highest point with no shelter around. So I kept a close eye on the sky, ready to descend quickly if the weather turned worse.
Your eyes are the color of the sunflowers, so radiant, wild and free. And the world stops spinning, I lose track of all the hours. There's no place I'd rather be. We are two hearts intertwined. I can see it in your eyes. Like the sun that beats the morning sky, we are perfect.
Found a good spot to dry my rain jacket. Finally the sun is back. I'm really hungry now. It's already 1:30, but I didn't want to eat while it was raining, so let's eat now. For lunch I ate an apple, some thick original, and again some bread with smoked ham. Now I finally have a full belly. There are still more than 3 hours left, so I definitely need that energy.
I believe in a God who loves me well, better than I can love myself. But I can't seem to make sense of grace, and I feel unworthy of your love most days.
Before I was in that beautiful side valley, it was one of the most beautiful I have ever seen. Now I was in the main valley. As you can see, the landscape is much wider again. There's a river that flows through this valley, and I knew I would have to descend all the way down to it. From there, the route would climb back up the opposite side, regaining much of the elevation I was about to lose. It was one of those classic mountain stages where the real work only begins after the long descent. However, I knew that it wasn't that far anymore, and I even planned to skip a few kilometers by taking the bus. I was really looking forward to that.
It's all waiting for you. It's all waiting for you. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning.
It was a really nice feeling when I was finally on the bus. I think that was well deserved. After the bus ride, I went to a campsite called Davos Munz. It's a really peaceful place, and as you can see, it was quite busy. I was really happy to be at the campsite and was looking forward to the first shower of this trip. I set up my tent first and then it was time to shower. Afterwards I ate chicken nuggets with french fries at the restaurant. There was even some live music. It was a really cozy atmosphere. Good morning. It was really nice to spend the night at the campsite. I could finally eat something different for dinner, shower, recharge everything. I think the only downside was that there was music until 11 p.m. and today I will do another beautiful hike. Waking up with everything organized again made the start into the day feel much easier. A night with a bit more comfort can really reset both body and mind on a long hike. Even small things suddenly feel luxurious when you've been out in the mountains for several days. With renewed energy, the trail ahead looked inviting rather than demanding. It was the perfect beginning for another day out in the landscape. There were some clouds again, so I made sure to enjoy the sun while it was shining.
Gotta hold on, hold on. Go all the little seconds that we hold. Every single breath we get to take. Don't let them go to waste.
There are quite many clouds up there, so probably the vision is very bad. I think it's better to do the first flight with the drone now. By the way, on day 3 and day 4 I did 2 stages of the Alpenpässeweg, the longest hiking route in Switzerland. The full trail stretches for about 700 kilometers across the Swiss Alps, crossing numerous high mountain passes along the way. Many hikers consider it the most beautiful long-distance hiking route in Switzerland because of its constantly changing alpine scenery. It links remote valleys, traditional villages, and dramatic high alpine landscapes into one continuous journey. Even walking just a small part of it gives a real impression of the diversity of the Swiss mountains. However, it's not only the most beautiful, but also the most exhausting route.
I don't really know what to say. Take a breath and try to breathe. I'm just trying to puzzle peace. Racking my brain, looking for answers. Wise words only get me so far.
It looks very funny with the sun and the clouds. I made it to the second highest point of today's tour, but I have to say, so far it's the least beautiful hike. It's a lot through the ski resort, which isn't so beautiful. Now I will try to cover some more distance before eating lunch. Normally the Alpenpässeweg is far more scenic than this section suggests. Here I was crossing the ski area of Obersaxen, which explains the infrastructure along the trail. Compared to remote alpine paths, it feels a bit less wild and natural. Still, even these sections are part of the journey between the more untouched landscapes.
Will I know where to find you? Then I looked you in the eyes with the promise, not brighter than the stars. I'll finish what I started. And if you lose your way, you will know where to find me.
The lunch break is already over. This time I could take it more chill than yesterday, and I looked at the map again and I think I found something very efficient. I didn't have that much food left, so the original plan was to descend down to one of the villages so that I could go to a grocery store. However, that would mean losing a lot of elevation that I would need to gain again the next day. So I was considering to spend the night at the top of a mountain and stick with the food I still had, but I was not yet sure what would be the better option.
London in the fall, in Paris too. And I've climbed hills to castles in the snow, but you I can't let go.
So now I have the choice. Either I spend the night up there, or I go down to the village, but that would mean that I would hike back up tomorrow. So yeah, I definitely don't want to do that, so let's go to the top of the other hill. As you can see, it was a very spontaneous decision once again. At over 2,000 meters, it can get surprisingly cold after sunset, even in summer. The temperature usually drops about 6 to 7 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 meters of elevation, so nights up high feel much colder than in the valley. That meant a chilly evening, but also a quiet and unforgettable place to sleep. I was hoping that the temperature would be fine, and it was actually quite challenging to find a spot where there are no cows, because there was cow shit everywhere.
Been through the fire, been to the mountain top, drank from
So, done for today. It was the shortest day so far. Usually I arrived at around 7 o'clock and now it's not even 5, but I think I still did around 17 or 18 kilometers. Like usual, I first set up my tent. It was actually quite windy up there. It looked really nice with the clouds and the sun. I decided to walk a few meters to watch the sunset. It was definitely one of the most beautiful sunsets I have ever seen. I also had one last cookie that I could still eat. Wow, I'm speechless. This is one of the most breathtaking views I've ever seen in my life. And this is basically right in front of my house. Just 3 hours with public transport. I definitely don't take this for granted. During the sunset, I noticed that my jacket was a bit broken. I enjoyed the last 30 minutes of daylight and went to bed early. Wow, I don't know what to say. Such an amazing view after waking up. That's just absolutely incredible. Sleeping up here is a very special experience, and yesterday when I went to bed, I was really afraid that the night would be too cold. First, I tried it without a jacket in the sleeping bag, but after 3 minutes it was already cold, and then I had to wear it. But luckily it gave me enough warmth, so it was right on the edge, I would say. I slept quite well actually, and I'm really surprised about that. But if it would have been a bit colder, that wouldn't have been funny anymore. And now I will pack everything up and then I will fly with the drone. Spending the night at 2,500 meters above sea level felt truly special. The sky was incredibly clear, filled with more stars than I could remember ever seeing. Up there, far away from any lights, the mountains felt silent and endless. It's a bit unfortunate that I only had an action cam with me. It would have been so nice to show you some high quality images of the night sky. Even though it was a very beautiful experience, I was running very low on both water and food, which made me a bit uneasy. However, I knew that I wouldn't starve and would be able to filter water again soon. Yes, I could finally refill my bottles. Since yesterday 4 p.m. I only had 2.5 liters of water, which isn't that much, and I only had a few sips left, so I'm really glad that I brought my filter, and I think in general I did a pretty good job packing my backpack. I was so dehydrated, I think I drank at least 1 liter already when I was filtering the water. By the way, I was not on the Alpenpässeweg anymore, I was heading to Obersaxen where I would end this hike. When looking at the map, I started the hike in Nufenen and went to Vals. On the second day the destination was Safien. On day 3 I left the Vals trail and hiked to Vella. The previous night I had spent high up on a mountain and now it was not far anymore to Obersaxen. All in all, this hike is 93 kilometers long and has an elevation gain of 5,500 meters. The 5th day was definitely nicer than the previous day and was a fitting end to this trip.
If heavy dark clouds arise and we get hard to recognize, I'll be the first one there to fight. I won't stop reaching till I find the light. I'm gonna love you till the well runs dry. I'm gonna give you all I have inside. All my days for all of time.
Wow, it's so beautiful. I would say it was definitely a good decision to do this trail, and so far I haven't seen any other hiker yet. Over the entire 5 days on the trail, encounters with other hikers were surprisingly rare. Most of the time it felt like I had the mountains completely to myself. Before this trip I had considered doing the Tour du Mont Blanc, which would have been the total opposite in terms of crowds. Out here, the quietness became one of the highlights of the journey. Looking back, I'm really glad I chose this route instead. For me, a quiet trail often feels more beautiful than a crowded one, even if the view would be considered more beautiful on a trail like Tour du Mont Blanc.
Drinking bars with strangers, separate ways we go, but I still care. Carry you with me, like a fading memory.
This is definitely the most ridiculous lunch so far. Really not that much. This was all the food I still had. I was really looking forward to do some grocery shopping again soon. After days of hiking and constantly adapting to the mountains, the routine of the trail had become normal life. The landscapes, the silence, and the effort slowly turned into lasting memories. It's always a strange feeling when a multi-day adventure comes to an end and everyday life starts to return. But at the same time, finishing the journey makes every step along the way feel even more meaningful. I will end the video now, as I'm almost at the bottom. It's incredible that 5 days of hiking are already over. It's crazy how fast time flies by. I really hope that you enjoyed this series. For me it was a lot of fun and I was also really lucky with the weather, but it was at the same time very exhausting, so now I'm both sad and happy that it's over. Consider to subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.